Welcome to Board Game Binge, the place where we bring you bite-sized, bingeable board game content from across the industry. I'm your host, James Staley, and in this episode, we're chatting with Isabella Viktoria Helm from Unidice, the smallest fully digitized dice that combines advanced tech and sophisticated technology. Unidice is currently on Kickstarter. Isabella, welcome to the binge. How are you doing?
Hey, thank you so much for inviting me here today. It's amazing to be here.
Oh, it is great to have you on here. Every time I can talk about something that is unique, and pun intended, I guess, with uni dice, right? But this is something that's really unique and really cool. So I always strive to find different approaches to guests on the show, whether it be artists, developers, designers, and so forth. And anytime I can get into something that is an accessory like this, I think is super cool. So thanks for agreeing to join us. I thought I would just start off by just mentioning you're in Germany now, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, as a company. And is this a new company you guys have started, or has this been a company you've been around for a while, or?
It is a daughter company of the Vision Pro Laboratory. I'm sorry,
Okay.
from my dad. It's quite pretty much a company that develops a lot of new stuff pretty much every day. So my dad is a bit positively crazy, I guess, and has a lot of ideas that he wants to bring to life. And the Unidice is one of them. And yeah,
Wow.
super exciting journey.
And for yourself, I know you've recently graduated from doing game design. Is this something that you've been kind of passionate about, like your whole life? Have you always been working on games, or have you always been kind of involved in gaming, or?
I grew up pretty much in a whole gaming house. So my dad has around 6,500 board games and a Steam library of, I think, in the meantime, 450 games and stuff. So we pretty much played all weekend. Uh, One of my first bigger board games was the Dungeons and Dragons board game. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if you know it.
Yep.
And I think I was 6 years old when we played it, and we really played one session after another. And since I was so small, I think one session took 14 hours or so. Uh,
6,000
yeah,
games is there's a passion. That's almost a sickness. That's a lot
yeah.
of games. So obviously your dad has, been a big gamer and has been really passionate to his hobby. Um, what kind of started it all? Like, is this something that even like your family was playing when they're younger, or how did they kind of build such a massive library of games?
So my dad absolutely loved gaming since he was small. And then he started to work for Games Workshop and designed the Lord of the Rings figurines and stuff in the
Mm.
beginning. And he earned quite a bit of money with that. And he invested pretty much everything into board games. Uh, and so his collection grew and grew and grew. And then he yeah, studied architecture is the wrong word. So he does the math behind the architecture stuff. I'm sorry, I'm missing the word there.
That's okay.
And yeah, then yeah, he worked on the whole building sites, and when the money he earned there went pretty much half into board games every month. And yeah, so the collection grew and grew and grew within the years, and within I think now 35 years, the collection grew to that amount. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. The cool thing about a collection that size, or I have a buddy that he's in around 2,000 something games he has in his collection. He's an amazing resource to talk to, just because he's played so many different games and so many different genres. Um, that he can very quickly, when he's playing a game, say, "Oh, this reminds me of these six games, and it's this mechanic from here and this mechanic from that one, and it's kind of a bit of this
Yeah.
theme here." And he's got this shorthand when it comes to talking about games and kind of giving feedback that comes from the benefit of playing so many games and him owning so many games. So I'm certain your dad probably is in a very similar situation. What I find interesting is I don't like, has he actually developed an actual board game itself, or is this kind of the first thing he's done in the board game industry?
And that's really the first thing that he's done
Wow.
there. So, like I said, he was the building sites and stuff.
Yeah.
pretty much forced into that job from his parents, as dumb as it sounds, but I'm pretty sure everyone knows such situations. And then he founded an LED company. And after some time, he was like, okay, no, I just do know what I want. I'm 50 now. It's time's over. I know want gaming.
That
And yeah, so then we played one night Mansion of Madness,
okay.
and we got quite super annoyed by always inputting the rolling results into the application. And then there was like, why isn't there a dice that can communicate with applications? And then the Unidice was founded.
Oh wow. And then yourself in your schooling, in game design, I mean, you got into actual programming as well, or was it
Mhm.
more kind of like UX, UI, or what? How did your studies kind of map out? What were the core things you learned in your studies?
When I studied game development, I really studied everything from C# with the Unity engine to Java programming, a bit of graphic programming, but that was one semester and I absolutely sucked in it.
Mm,
And yeah, in the last semesters, there were also a few things about game design. And there I realized, wait a second, programming's fun, but designing the stuff is even more fun. And then I even ended up writing my whole bachelor thesis about game design and world building and how it influences each other and stuff. And yeah, in my last semester, I also joined the company.
mm.
And so, yeah, I pretty much used the knowledge that I generated while writing my bachelor thesis in the games I designed for the Unidice.
As part of the that thesis, I imagine you would have had to create games, I guess, as part of your studies. Did you create a game even like
I
before you moved over
created
to
a
uni?
world.
Oh, you created a world.
Mhm.
Oh, that's very
I
cool.
created a whole world in the bachelor thesis. I had to create a few games for the studies themselves. So
Hmm.
in the second semester, I had to make a game. In the fifth semester, and a few, yeah, not really games, but things to show off that I can do, for example, in inventory management or stuff. Uh, but I think the biggest game was in the fifth semester. It was like a programmed around half a year, around 16 hours a day for 16 hours a day for that game. It was
Wow,
super huge.
that's a lot of code.
Yeah, was horrible.
And then the decision to come and work with the family. Is this something that was kind of part of your plan from when you first got into studying game design? Was that kind of what the output was that you're kind of moving towards, or is this something that just kind of seemed to mesh very well upon graduation? It's like, okay, maybe there's some synergies here. How did that kind of come about?
It matched pretty well. So I said my whole life, no, I will never work in any of the companies of my parents because they're working so much and I don't want to do that too. Uh, yeah, it didn't go to plan.
Yeah.
Now I'm here and yeah, but I pretty much started studying even before the Unidice was invented. I think my dad had the idea when I was in the second or third semester. And yeah, then he made the whole certificates that you need and the design protections and stuff
Yeah.
before the development really started. And when it started, it was like, hey, don't you want to do this with us? And I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Now let's do it.
Working for family or working with family is not always easy, right? It has its benefits and it has its negatives. The benefits being is that you have people that you inherently trust, and you've got that trust that's established by default, by birth, right? The other challenge I find, because I've worked with family members in the past, is being able to separate the business from the personal, right? And sometimes every interaction, even if you're talking about business, it becomes personal, right? Is the history of the personal that can kind of get tied in there. And I find that's the challenge, is being able to kind of separate, yourself from the personal side and say, no, let's try to put the family stuff to the side. Let's try to focus on this as kind of business colleagues, which is easier said than done. With this Unidie, in terms of the generation of it, where, like, I'm sure it's gone through many different iterations as they did all the technology behind this, but how did it start? Did it start based on this game that you mentioned? Was that the first iteration of the die, and then how did it kind of grow from there?
So the first idea really came up with Mansion of Madness,
Mm,
but getting in contact with Fantasy Flights is pretty much impossible if you're not a big company. So I think a connection there isn't so realistic, at least at the moment. But yeah, it was pretty much the first idea that we had, and then we drove it a bit back to, okay, maybe let's just make a die made out of displays that is fully programmable and customizable. And then it was like, yep, but the first idea was we want to make that it can communicate with apps. Okay, yeah, then we make it to be able to communicate with apps. And then it was like, yep, but we need apps for that. And then I designed the apps for that. And so the project grew and grew and grew. And the funny thing is, in the beginning, the Unidice had round displays, which is pretty different from now. But these, because we thought, well, okay, there are these smartwatches and they have round displays and they're small, it should work.
yeah.
But in the size and with the whole electronics and stuff, it wasn't then really possible to make it with round displays when we want to make it as small as possible. And so we had to rework the whole casing and stuff. And there we found then Surface Inc., a company from the USA who also works for Apple and Microsoft and stuff. And we shot them the mail like, hey, do you want to work with us? Maybe. I mean, we never thought that they would respond, to be honest. But within 10 minutes, yeah, sure thing, let's do it.
Really? Wow.
And yeah. And then they were like, yeah, round displays look nice and everything, but maybe let's just take these displays, and we also need to develop new kinds of displays because you want to charge through displays the die. And so we had to invent a whole new kind of a display. And yeah, well, it grew pretty big.
And how does it like how do you charge that die? So you're saying is it like kind of like the ones where you like with your watch where you set it on the magnetic charger and it just charges that way, kind of like you do like a watch or
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
you just have a normal induction charging pad, like for your phone or something.
Yeah.
You just place the Unidice on there on the right screen. It will be marked in the final one. We forgot in our prototypes, which is always, yeah, you have to turn the die 20 times until it charges, which is annoying. But in the final ones, it will be marked.
Yeah.
And yeah, then it's within an hour fully charged.
Wow. And then how long does the charge last for?
When you really use it full force all the time and don't let it dim, around 4 hours.
4 hours.
But I
That's a lot of
managed to
gameplay. Yeah.
play 14 hours sessions. This Saturday, I had a session that took 17 hours that I played with the Unidice and one charge.
Wow. And then when they're developing this from the engineering side, I'm sure part of the issue is worrying about breakage as you're throwing a die across the table with screens on it. The potential for cracks in screens and things like how do you test for that? Like, is it the screen company you're talking to saying, hey, we need something that's going to be durable, or is there some kind of protective layer on top of the screen to keep it protected, or how did you guys deal with that?
That were multiple steps. So we talked to Surface Inc. and really thought about how can we do it. And then we landed with a multi-bonded plastic screen.
Okay.
And then we had a lot of rolling tests and fall tests and heat and cold tests and stuff. And it took, I think, around half a year or so until we had the formula right that it doesn't scratch and that it can drop from tables and it will even survive if you spill your Coke and stuff. Uh, yeah.
Can you dunk it in a tank of water, or that's too far?
No. If you spill your water or Coke or something, just put the Unidice out of there. But if you take it to a bath when you have a rubber ducky on it, it's absolutely your fault if it dies, really.
So I'm going to show on screen for people who are watching either live or on the replay. I mean, it looks super cool. I gotta say that, and congrats. I'd say also on your funding so far. I mean, you guys still have 16 days to go. I'm gonna put this in Canadian dollars just because it's the only way I can see it. And the numbers are usually larger. So you're at almost 200,000 in pledges on a goal of about 24,000. So almost at 10 times your original goal. So congrats on that. You guys must be very, very excited about that. It's a
Thank you.
big
Absolutely.
accomplishment to get into the six figures, and it's a smaller club, so it's cool to see you guys there. Can you walk us through as I kind of scroll over this and show the audience, like how does this die work? Like how does somebody A, interact with it, B, how do they program it? Can they program it? Like, how does the kind of the basic functionality of this work?
So the die itself has different kinds of functionality. So the first thing is that it's completely adaptable by the user. So you have the die, and each display can simulate its own die. And there we have a companion application called Configurations app, where you can really upload your own photos, put numbers on it, text on it, and so on and so forth. You can make a good looking die. And then you can place it on a 3D model inside the app to see, okay, I want on the top, for example, my D20. I want my hit location die at the bottom, on the side, the D100 and stuff. So you can really make the dies you need. Then you press install, it uploads it, and you're pretty much ready to go. You are ready to go. But we also have, for example, the Unidice Fantasies app. There you can create a whole character sheet, for example, for tabletop RPGs and put in your formulas, or you download a pre-made one that is made by the community because there is a whole database around it, where you can then just say, okay, I want to throw my fireball. And the Unidice knows, okay, cool, fireball, you just throw the die. The calculations get made for you, and it tells you how much damage you make with a neat looking skin fitting to the skill you tested, and even a sound effect if you like. So it can trigger sound effect over the smartphones. And then we have also a ton of games where you, for example, the Unidice simulates a card deck. You can play cards by double tapping the screen. So it's also double tap sensitive. And we're currently working on a game where you control a character by tilting the die, so that if you really tilt it to the front, that the character moves up and so on and so forth. So there are so many possibilities for the Unidice. It's
So it almost becomes like it's a die, but at the same time, it's almost its own little gaming console. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, exactly. So we call it always the gaming console for your pocket.
Wow.
Because you can just take it with you, and it has the nice effect that, I don't know, I mean, you pretty much, when you travel around and you want to play something with the family, you don't know, install something like Monopoly on your phone. But there you always have the problem that when you don't throw the dice, or you're pretty much tapping only on the screen, and that's just not the right board game feeling, and that can be resolved by the Unidice. You still throw die, you interact with the die. So you really have also new games of interacting with digital games and traveling games, and so yeah.
No, that's crazy. And so in the size of this, so in some of the pictures it's showing a person holding it kind of between their two fingers. Like how many inches across is like one of these faces on the die?
Just let me calculate inches and centimeters.
Or even, if you want to give us centimeters, that's fine. That's more than half our audience. So
it's 3.9 centimeters in all
3.9
dimensions.
All right.
I'm not sure if you can see it.
Yeah.
So I have quite a small hand, so it fits pretty well.
That's cool. And when you roll this die, and this is what I'm trying to get my head around, is it the face that turns up, or is it just basically when it lands, it will then randomly generate the face to show up? Like, I'm trying to think how you do like something, because it's a 6-sided die. So how do you turn that into like a D100, as you're saying? Is it just, it'll randomly generate a face for the, when you roll? Is that how it kind of works?
You upload the whole faces for your dice.
Yep.
And then you throw the die, and you say, for example, I have my D100 always on the top. As long as the die rolls, the die calculates new numbers. So there is a random number generator, but it is pretty much, if you press 1000 times, a random number generator, and then you get the result.
Yeah.
Since it generates as long numbers as the die rolls, and when the die stops, then you see the last calculated number. So from a D100, for example, it will always generate from 100 to from 1 to 100. And let's say it stops at 47, and then it shows the image 47 there. And that's
gotcha.
also on all other sides. So you have really always 6 random number generators running in there.
That's cool. Okay, I think I got my head around that now.
It's quite complicated.
No, it's cool. So there's some kind of, is it like a gyroscope or something in there that can detect as it's moving, and then when
Exactly.
as it's rolling, it's continuing to keep randomly generating, and then as soon as I guess it stops, then it kind of locks in at the number that was generated at the time it stops, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. How many of these? I guess technically you only need one. Then, if you're like, you wouldn't need more than one die, because you can program this infinite number of ways, right?
Exactly, yeah. So you can also switch on the fly. So if the image are on there, the switching is, I don't know, maybe 4 seconds or so. So you can also swap between dice super fast,
Yeah.
uh, which is also quite neat if you, for example, want to have an event die for, I don't know, kingdom death monsters, and then you want to play, I don't know, human punishment, and then you want these dice for that, and you can just switch it on the fly.
Oh, it's cool. Wow, this is super cool. You've got these different case colors too. Like there's I see on your screen you've got like blue and red. So how does that work? Is that like a custom order or are these like snap-on cases where you can change the color or how does that work?
That will be a selection of the pledge managers. So we thought in the beginning that the Unidice will be black, but during the conventions here in Germany, we had a lot of feedback that people would like to have colored casings for the Unidice. And so we thought, okay, maybe let's make it for the grand milestones that people then can select a color and then they can choose it in the pledge manager to exchange their black die again for a red die or a white die, or depending on the colors you unlock, of course.
And then it comes with a charging pad, which I can see
Mhm.
on the page here as well. Um, and it comes with the case, which I think is good too, because you want to have this thing protected when it goes into your game bag and you're traveling. But it also seems like it comes with all these pre-programmed games. So what are some of the games that it comes with?
So the first one is Cyberrun. I teased it a bit with the deck building game.
Okay.
It's pretty much yeah, in a cyberpunk universe where symbiotes and humans are living together, and the city is in chaos because of the great underlord bosses that rule the city in the shadows, and you have to defeat them. And you have your deck that you can yeah, collect new cards, you can upgrade cards, you can upgrade your character, you can try different combinations of characters which have special abilities and stuff. We have House of Influence, which is hugely inspired by Among Us, I should say. But yeah, so there you have play. You need at least 3 players, and
Yep.
it's pretty much the minority plays against the majority, and you have to collect points, and you have to figure out with the point changes between the rounds, who is against you and who plays in your team. And it's super difficult to play, but really, really cool when you really manage to wrap your head around it. So it's a really clever, yeah, social deduction game.
And then these other
We
games like the Undiced Fantasies, Dice Poker, Caesar, are those then add-ons or how do you get those games as well?
So Cyberrun will be free when the Unidice releases, and the rest can be bought in the App Store.
Okay.
But we really say we don't want microtransaction or something. So if you get a game from us, it will be either you pay once, don't know, 1.99 or stuff, or you get it for free and you can remove ads for a little fee.
Okay.
But so that's since it's my responsibility to design the games and the whole stuff, there will never be any kind of microtransactions or subscriptions because that's just annoying.
Yeah, microtransactions are brutal. So, but you will have free games, I guess, that have ads in them. Is that kind of part of your monetization model, or?
So it's when people really say, yeah, when the feedback is really, we would love to have this game for free, like Unidice Fantasies. We had a lot of people, hey,
Yeah.
it's a super complex application, so maybe just make a permanent banner down there that I can remove when I really use it and multiple times and stuff. And we just said, okay, yeah, that's absolutely fine. We just make it like that. You have a permanent ad banner in the bottom, and you can remove it for 99 cents or something.
Got it. Is this die connected then to like the web? Does it have to be like paired to your phone, or how does it communicate in that regards? Like how does it know that it's got an ad running or it doesn't have an ad running, like or to remove it or not remove it? How does that work?
Oh, so the die itself has never ads on it. So you connect the Unidice to your application via Bluetooth,
Okay.
and then you have the ad at the bottom of the screen of your application, but there
On
will
the
never
phone.
be pop-ups or something. So really just the smartphone screen.
Got
So
it.
it won't be disturbing. No pop-ups, no video ads, just the banner.
And then you've got this option to create your own games. So can you talk to me about that? Because I'm sure that is going to be hugely compelling for a lot of people. How does that
Yes.
work?
So we created our own software developer kits. They can pretty much do everything with the Unidice, from controlling the screens, reading the gyroscope data, uh, getting the double tapping events, and everything you need to make a nice game. And since there are a lot of different kind of programmers, we decided that we really want to make an SDK for Android devices, one for iOS, and also one for Unity developers, because most of indie developers use Unity. So we thought, okay, let's go with the Unity engine, and then really everyone can make games, gamification applications, or whatever.
And then how will that work? So if somebody designs a game, will they be able to like sell that game, or will there be an option for them to be some kind of like almost like a licensing or something where they can, if they come up with something that's really cool that works on your platform, that there's like a shared monetization of that? Or have you guys kind of flushed that out at all? Or
So we will go there the Unity engine route, so
yeah.
you can really fully use it, release games with it. And if you earn around 30K, we get a few percentages of your earnings. But if you really make lower than 30K, you can keep everything for yourself.
Oh wow. This is it's so cool to see like a platform like this kind of at the ground level. All right, like it's awesome. Good for you guys on this. Where are you guys kind of going from here? Like, how have you mapped out the journey of the company? Like most guests I talk to have board games, right? And if they're board game companies, they have mapped out the next 2-3 games and kind of the schedule of how they're going to take those games to market. In your case, you have a single item, right? That has a lot of different uses for it, but it's a single item. What's the next step for you guys? Is it more programming and more functionality of this, or is there like a Unidice 2.0 that's coming, or kind of what's the plans for you as a company?
So for us currently, it's really the most important thing to fill the Unidice with lives, so that we want more applications. We want to give it more features that we have planned. So for example, GIF support. We really
Mm,
want that the Unidice can play animations, but it's super tricky to do, and it will take, I think, around half a year to really make it work perfectly. And half a year, yeah, it's a lot of costs. I don't need to talk around it. And so we decided, okay, we make this after the Unidice launched, after people bought the dice, that then there will be an update with GIF support. We want to make new games, of course. So we have a few ideas like a Tamagotchi sort of thing that you can
yeah.
carry the die around and have a little pet with you. We got a lot of times the request to make a sort of Tetris for the Unidice. I'm currently trying to figure out how that works. And
Okay.
we also had a rendering with a board game that people absolutely loved. And I'm currently really bringing this game to life, because it was like, hey, which game is it? Where can I buy it and stuff? And I was like, it's just rendering, but okay, you guys love it. I make it a real game. So in the future, there will also be a board game for the Unidice.
Oh, that's cool. So you
And
guys are developing like a board game that'll then go along with the Unidice, is if I understand it
exactly,
correctly? Okay. Wow.
like a real hybrid game, like a bit of Mansion of Madness, but a bit more complex because the dice can take over the difficult stuff.
Yeah.
And we also want to go in the gamification direction. So the dice is, of course, a gaming device,
Yeah.
but it can be used for a lot of things like learning vocabulary. You see the, don't know, English word at the top, you turn it around and see, for example, don't know, the German word, you double tap the German word, you hear how you have to pronounce it on your smartphone. You can use it for time tracking and theoretically for sport applications. So a sports group in Berlin is already using this to roll out their workout that they're doing for this day and stuff. And it's just so many possibilities that the DICE can do beyond gaming, that we also really want to go in that direction. For me personally, the coolest thing is smart home control.
Mm.
So we're already in a conversation with a smart home company who wants to use the Unidice to control lights, the door and stuff and so forth. So
Oh, that's
yeah, there's a
crazy.
lot of things that will come with it.
I guess at this point, that becomes the constraint of trying to figure out like this thing can do literally anything your imagination can think of. And the challenge becomes, okay, now how do we kind of corral this into a strategic direction as a company so that
Exactly.
we're moving forward, right? Because you can't do you can't do everything, right? So you got to kind of figure out, okay, what are we going to do? And what are some of the things that, yeah, that'd be cool to do, but we just don't have the time or resources to focus on it because that time and resources is better focused over in this other direction. So I'm sure that's been the biggest challenge for you guys as a company.
Yeah, absolutely. So we discussed a long time really which direction we're going. My dad always wanted to do, yeah, let's do that, do everything at once. And I was like, yeah, maybe just let's do gaming first because it's a die and people connect the die with gaming. And then I was like, yeah, okay, then let's do gaming first. But as you can see in the Kickstarter, there's already a bit teaser the future of the device with the
Yeah.
smart home control and sports and stuff, because we really want to show people that it will be more than just a gaming device.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Oh, for sure. Well, I want to congratulate you guys on what you've been able to achieve here as a family and with your
thank you.
funding so far. I know that you still got the back end hockey stick. So where you guys end up is going to be obviously significantly higher than where you're at right now. This is exciting. I can see the passion in you, and I'm sure your family are just giddy on kind of getting this thing out the door. And I want to wish you guys all the best with this campaign in this coming year.
Thank you so much.
No worries. You take care. Cheers.
You too. Cheers.
This has been an episode of the Board Game Binge podcast, hosted by James Staley, produced by James Staley and Mike Bruner, with original music by Nick Smith. If you would like to watch these interviews live, simply subscribe to our YouTube channel, Board Game Binge, and you'll get access to live interviews, giveaways, and interesting board game content from across the industry. I can't wait for you to join us. See you next time.